joined with Terry Lynch from Power Nickel. Terry, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you. It's always fun to come on the deep dive.
So, Terry, you've been a guy who's been around the Canadian capital markets, Canadian junior markets for years, and I find it kind of interesting. We're hitting all-time highs in the price of gold. There doesn't seem to be much euphoria. There's obviously not a lot of money flowing into the at least the smaller equity names. Is this reminiscent to any times before? What's your read on what's happening?
Well, my read is the Canadian capital markets are structurally broken. Unfortunately, I wish I could give you a better answer. I would like to do that. It's, there's no reason at this time in the cycle that these markets aren't moving, and people say, oh, it's a cyclical market and it'll come back. I'm not convinced. I think that you pretty much have to change some of the regulatory environments. We've talked about this in the past, and I think the most egregious one in my mind is the short market exempt clause that allows, hedge funds to have rights that you and I don't have as shareholders. And this is how they manufacture basically endless amounts of paper to suppress stock surges in prices, and in fact have driven the stock prices down, as you mentioned, to virtually all-time lows in what is a very good commodity market, and looks like it might get a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been working with Save Canadian Mining, your organization, and I think that it's nice to see somebody doing something instead of just talking and complaining.
Yep.
What initiatives are you guys working on right now?
I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do an interview tomorrow, and we'll lay out our game plan going forward. We've tried lobbying with the regulators and showing them research. That hasn't worked. They're at best in their own echo chamber. At worst, something else. And we've tried lobbying with the politicians, and we've got to meet the premiers and the chief or the ministers of finance, and they'll be very polite and grin and happy, and we're going to do something about this. But there's been nothing done. Yeah. So I'm convinced that the only way we're going to really change this, but I am convinced we can change it, is the evidence is so egregious that companies have now they've hit that Peter Finch moment where they're opening up the windows and saying, I'm sick of this shit. I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I think we're there now, and I think we're going to start to get some real powerful social media response from companies and shareholders. Save Canadian Mining will try and lead this, and we're going to come out hard. And I'm in Tuesday of next week. I'm giving a speech, at a conservative fundraiser with what I hope will be the next Premier of BC, John Rustad. We're going to be giving the keynote, and we'll be talking about how to save BC money, and it'll be how you save BC money. You got to save the capital markets. Save the capital markets. First step you got to do is shut down the short market exempt. That's it. Start there, and there's other things that need to be done. But if you do that, that's the head of the snake. And I believe we'll cut that head of the snake off, and that'll lead to boom times. Which is why, as negative as I am about the Canadian capital market structure, I'm positive about investing now. Now's the time to buy.
So let's talk about Power Nickel. We've had John here talking about Power Nickel in the past, but there's going to be some people who are watching this video for the first time. They're unfamiliar with the company. Can you give us a quick little overview?
Yeah, so Power Nickel obviously has nickel associated with, but we've really become a polymetallic story. So what is a polymetallic? It means that you have multiple metals in your ore body, or mineralized zone, as the 43101 gods wouldn't punish me. So in our case, while we have nickel, we also have a lot of copper and a lot of what we call noble metals, which is gold, silver, and platinum group elements. So in our situation, we're probably looking at having equal parts nickel, copper, and the noble metals. And we've had some, we had a discovery that had 7.1 million tons of 1.13% nickel, and that's grown. And then looking for more of that, we stepped out 5.5 kilometers away and struck this polymetallic zone. The discovery hole was 8 meters of 1 ounce PGMs and 1.5% copper. And then we followed it up last January to April, drilled 16 holes, 15 of the 16 hit. More than half of them almost 10 meters, 10% copper equivalent. So this was like historic numbers. And that obviously raised our profile, got us a lot of exposure to the really smart money, I would say, in the space. And we closed a $20 million round in June, led by Robert Friedland, Rob McEwen, and some of the mining funds. So, we're well funded, unlike most juniors, and we've really got a tremendous possibility that we may be The comparison has been to Norilsk, which is the world's largest mine, the only $1 trillion deposit in the world. Now, will we get there? Who knows? But the cool thing about it is that, you and I are both asymmetric investors. We don't mind taking risk, but we want to have a lot of upside. So I would say with polymetallic deposits like Power Nickel right now, we've evidenced a lot of success. We're trading at, I would say, a serious discount to our current valuation of what we've already discovered, but the potential exploration on this thing could be mind-blowing. So that's what I think is that's what's exciting investors. Our stock's done well, and it's now starting to be at sort of a summer sleep zone. But now that we're putting news out again, we're back in a news flow cycle. I think the thing's taken off, and we'll see.
And it's obviously it's day to day, but you're having a heck of a run here.
Yeah. I mean, we put that result out on Tuesday, where we basically said the Lion Zone's grown by 50% this summer, and we gave 7 core boxes there that we don't have the assays on. But the way this material is, it's massive chalcopyrite, so you pretty much know what you're going to have. We've put out 9 core boxes without assays. 9 of them delivered great assays. So I would expect that we'd have the same thing here, and this will start September 30th or thereabouts and roll forward. So we got a lot of assays coming. So there's, stocks run when you got catalysts and you don't need money, and that's where we're at.
So what do the exploration plans look like with all this new money, and are we going to see drills in the ground over the winter?
Yeah, for sure. So we basically, one of the probably more important things we did is we acquired the thought leadership of Dr. Steve Beresford. And he was formerly chief geologist at First Quantum. Then he went to MMG, and then IGO as chief scientific officer. So a series of very successful companies and hits. So he's probably spent, several $100 million exploring for polymetallics all around the world, 40 years of experience. So Western mining trained. So if he's not the top polymetallic scientist in the world, he's in that conversation. And polymetallics are quite different. I had no idea. I've never had polymetallic before. I've been in gold, been in, obviously in nickel, but this is a different beast. So and while our exploration team did an amazing job finding the thing and exploring it, we thought, hey, if we want to take it to the next level, we really need thought leadership there to, what are the secret ways to explore cost effectively for polymetallics? So that's why we brought Steve in first as a technical advisor. Then he went to the site and he looked at the rocks on the ground, and he was just blown away. And so he's come on as our board member and technical advisor. And his approach really, so this summer while we expanded the Lion Zone, the other half of our budget really went into long-term, I would call it scientific research. So we did massive gravity survey, EM surveys, and then we drilled 4,000-meter holes to do downhole EM on. So they were drilled in barren ground to parallel our strike, so that we can, because what he's found in the polymetallic world, his theory is that NISC main and Lion Zone are connected. That's 5.5 kilometers, almost 6. And so that would be massive, right? And his theory is that the nickel sulfide underbelly is the oven. And what happens is some geothermal action happened, brought the copper sulfides up to the surface, they precipitated, and they do this in like a chute, and that's why it's such high grade. And he says, most unusual for, in any other circumstance, but for polymetallics, not unusual. In fact, these high-grade chutes are very common, and there's not likely to be onesies. But he says they are a different animal. And so, for example, he says, well, we've been super, good, but we've been also fortunate to have the drill bit continue to work. He says what will happen, he predicts, is that at some point the Lion Zone will, for 50 or 75 meters, be dropped. This is the nature of these types of deposits. He says, but it doesn't mean it's gone. It means it's down and to the left or down and to the right. So he says, if you try and chase that down with a drill bit, it's going to be super expensive. But if you do the downhole EM and you have the gravity, you're going to be able to vector into that. So he says, let's do it right. So we've got a $10 million program just using those tactics. That starts October 15th. We'll drill 30,000 meters between October 15th and April 30th. And that's what we'll be hunting to basically find more Lion Zones, delineate the Lion Zone as much as we can, follow the Lion Zones down to what we believe will be the massive nickel copper sulfide somewhere subsurface, 500 to 700 meters down there. That's the plan.
So last question for you. If I'm an investor watching, or I have you guys on my watch list, what kind of timelines am I looking for in terms of getting drill results?
So the drill results will start coming, we've said publicly, end of September. So I think that's, barring anything we know from the assay labs, they'll start, and then every 2 weeks or so after that. So we've got, lots of drilling catalysts coming, and then we've also got the spin out we're doing. We October 30th, our shareholders will vote on the spin out. I think that'll be productive for our shareholders as well. And then we've got the feasibility study from CVMR, which will be out by the end of September, which is we haven't spent a lot of time discussing it, but it's a business opportunity that's as big as NISC, which is pretty mind-blowing to say, but it's that big.
Well, Terry, thanks very much for hopping on here and doing this. As a shareholder, I appreciate all the hard work you've been putting in, and I look forward to seeing those results.
Just keep on trucking. Thanks again. Appreciate it.